And welcome back to Hawkeye's House of Horrors. And Hawkeye, that's me. I'm going to bring to you my latest horror film of 1980 that I would like to review that I really enjoy. And that's Peter Blatty. I almost said William Friedkin. William Peter Blatty's The Ninth Configuration. Um, this was written and directed by Blatty, and this was, in fact, his directorial debut. He went on to direct only one other film, and that was Exorcist 3 in 1990. Now, this was based on his novel Twinkle Twinkle Killer Kane, and it was released way back in 1966. And he was wanting to make that into a film years before this was, in fact, released and made. But originally, it was actually William Friedkin who was going to direct the film. Blatty thought um, the screenplay or the ideas and everything were in a good pair of hands. He thought that he would be able to direct this film properly. The problem is, no studio wanted to make this thing. So in the end, um, the two worked on and made The Exorcist instead. And then after that, Blatty got back on board into wanting to make the ninth configuration or Twinkle Twinkle Killer Kane into a film. Now, this film was released on February the 29th, 1980. Good indication that it was a leap year, February the 29th. Now, I don't think this film performed very well at all at the box office. And originally, it was distributed by Warner Brothers, um, but I think they may have pulled out at some point. But anyways, um, this film though, it's very hard, or maybe even impossible, to slip this film into one genre. It plays very much out like a comedy, and then certainly a horror film, and that's why it's on my list. And then at other times, very much like a drama, but also very much involving religion at the same time um, within the story. Definitely, this film is not for your average Joe or your average Jill going to the box office or going to the theater. I'm sorry. Um, this film is unconventional. It's outside of the box, that type of film. Um, and the first time I saw this film, I actually hated it. Um, until I got to the third act, until I got to the barroom scene, and then from then on, I loved it. And I think what my problem was it was so unconventional, or it wasn't just a straight up horror movie that I was perhaps wanting to watch. Um, Now, in seeing the film the second time, then I loved it. I loved the whole film. I then kind of understood what was going on. But at the same time, because I was thinking forward, thinking, I'm going to review this thing at some time, maybe put it on YouTube. But I was intimidated. But I've seen it a couple times more now and I've written things down. I know what I really love about this film, um, and I'm going to share that with you. So I feel much more confident in hopefully bringing to you a good review of this film. Now, after The Exorcist was released, Blatty rewrote the book. Um, I've seen in an interview he actually preferred the original. It was much funnier to him. I have not read the book or either version of the book, if there are two of them available, which is too bad. I would like to read it. I love the movie, so I'm sure the book is great as well, I assume. But the film definitely has got some amazing dialogue, very funny stuff, very quotable, and some amazing performances put in by the actors in the roles of the film. Now, as I said, no studio wanted to make it, so in the end, Blatty put his own money in the film for this to be made. Um, what's crazy to me is who put the other money in, the other half, or the rest of the money for this to get made was actually Pepsi or PepsiCo. They had money within Hungary that was blocked or had to be used there. So they and Blatty worked out a deal that they would put the money down, but it had to be filmed in Hungary. So that is what happened. That's how this film was made. Now, I'll go through the story as well as a lot of the main actors or characters in it. The story is about a castle that, interestingly enough, looks very much like Dracula's castle. They even mention his character a couple times in the film, and there's even a poster of Bela Lugosi on one of the walls in the castle. But this has been set up in northwestern United States for military personnel, and it's being used as an insane asylum. Now, the setting in the film, I think, once again, it's interesting because it's beautiful, yet it's perfectly set by perfect setting for a horror film. And it's like continually raining outside. You can see the rain pelting off the glass when they're standing in the rooms. And even at night, when they have the night shots looking at the outside of the castle, you can see the rain coming down as well. Now I'm going to go through the actors of the film, and first I will go through the military personnel that are in the insane asylum. Um, First off, you have Jason Miller, who was in The Exorcist. Amazing performance there, and an amazing performance here as well. He plays Lieutenant Reno, which hilariously, he is adapting Shakespeare for dogs. Along with him, his sidekick character is played by Joe Spinell. I talked about or reviewed a film Joe Spinell was in 1980 earlier, Maniac. So this is his second film of this year, horror film that I needed to review for you guys. Um, Interestingly, he was not in the book and he was not also in the screenplay, but he was able to talk Blatty into adding him to the film, adding him as a sidekick character to Lieutenant Reno. And his name is Lieutenant Spinell, which is his own name. So that is funny as well. Now, with Lieutenant Reno, there's this to me is the funniest thing in the film. Um, there's a scene where he's opening a door, coming walking out. I think it says casting on the outside of the door, and a dog runs out, and he yells out something along the lines of, "Tell your damn agent I'll never work with him again." And then tells Colonel Kane beside him, "I'm casting Julius Caesar, and they send me a dog that lisps." I think that is hilarious, really funny, and the whole setting, the whole goings on is very kooky, going on as well. So that's really funny. We also have Moses Gunn, who I remember from the Never Ending Story. He thinks he's Superman. He even wears the Superman outfit and everything like that. He goes. His name is Major Namek as well. There's George DeCenzo, who I remember from Back to the Future. He played Marty McFly's grandfather in that film. He's got multiple personalities, including Sister Eve Black, right in the nun's outfit as well, and he is Captain Fairbanks. And then there's Robert Loggia. I apologize. That's how you say his name. I remember him in a million things, like Scarface, for example. Um, he plays Lieutenant Benish, but he likes to sing Al Jolson, uh, right in blackface and everything. And then there's Alejandro Rey, Lieutenant Gomez, who's the artist. He's always painting things and even painting on people throughout the film. And then William Peter Blatty is also in the film as well. He plays Lieutenant Frome, um, in a very funny scene, as it is Stacy Keach or um, his character Colonel Kane, who is the new shrink. He's coming to this insane asylum, and when he comes there, there's Lieutenant Frome dressed up as a doctor, so he thinks he's the doctor. He's wearing the lab coat and got a stethoscope and everything like that. But in fact, he is no doctor. He's in the insane asylum as well. Um, but throughout the whole film, he comes across as if he is a doctor. And by the end of the film, there's three others that are with him. Two people who think they're orderlies, and one man who's in a beard, who's dressed up as a nurse, right down to wearing the nurse's dress. So very funny. And then the final character that's within the insane asylum is Scott Wilson, the actor, who plays Captain Cutshaw, who is an astronaut who went mad as he was going to be going into outer space. And one thing that I think is very cool is that character, Captain Cutshaw, was also in The Exorcist. He was the character that when Reagan McNeil comes down at the party in her house, she tells him, "You're gonna die up there," talking about him going into space. So that's really cool. Now, on the other side, going to be going into the psychiatrists and the military personnel that are working there as well. As I said, there's Stacy Keach as Colonel Hudson Kane. As I said, he's the new shrink brought into the insane asylum. Woohoo! I'm having a tough time saying that insane asylum. It's a real tongue twister for me. There's also Ed Flanders as Colonel Richard Fell. There's Neville Brand as Major Groper and Tom Atkins as Sergeant Krebs. So you have a great cast here, great character actors, and they all do a great job in their roles. In the end of the film, though, Kane connects with Cutshaw, as Cutshaw does not believe in a loving God. Um, and Kane is out to prove to Cutshaw of his existence, and also the existence of good in human beings, which Cutshaw also doesn't believe exists. But, spoiler alert here, we also find that Keach is actually Killer Kane, or his real name is Colonel Vincent Kane, who killed many during the Vietnam War with his bare hands. And his brother is actually Ed Flanders, who he is actually Colonel Hudson Kane, the psychiatrist, and is actually in charge of the hospital. So there you have it. And that's introduced to you, or you know that kind of as you're entering or approaching the third act of uh, Kane going to the bar room to help Cutshaw. Now, I've written some things down. I'm going to go through things that I love, things that stood out to me, um, or things that are interesting. And this is a film that word definitely goes along with very well. Um, the opening to the film I thought was very interesting, as you hear a song called San Antone playing, um, as you see the castle and you see Scott Wilson's character in his room looking outside. It's a an interesting opening, and not definitely not your standard opening to a horror film by any means. And as well, I thought it was also interesting when you're introduced to Colonel Kane. He's asleep in the back of a car. They're driving to the castle to drop him off. But then when he awakes, there's outside on the back of a big truck, there's all these bikers. They're drinking, being crazy, being chaotic, being out of control. He sees them, and those are the very bikers he must face off against in the third act of the film. Now, I love the scene. This is going to involve a dog again. The scene when Reno tells Colonel Kane and Colonel Fell why Hamlet was pretending to be crazy during, the play Hamlet by Shakespeare. And then Colonel Kane says, "I think I agree with you." And then Reno turns to the dog and says something along the lines of, that's why we do things my way. And they leave the room. Hilarious scene. But much like the film, it's hilarious, but it's also right within uh, what the film is and what should be in the mind of the viewer. Who's crazy here? Who's pretending to be crazy? Excuse me. Who's actually who actually belongs there, and who's pretending to be crazy so they don't have to deal with their life? Um, and I'm not sure. I've never actually sat down in this film and thought who is and who isn't crazy. I know Cutshaw belongs there, that's for sure. But um, in the end, like I look at it and say, you know what? It doesn't really matter because it's about Cutshaw and Kane, their connection, their relationship, and Cutshaw and his problem in not believing in God and not believing in the good within the human. That's much more important than who's crazy in my mind when I watch the film. Now, Colonel Kane as well also lets them play The Great Escape. Yeah, that's right. The classic, amazing Steve McQueen war film, The Great Escape. So they're like digging a hole in the basement of the castle while everyone that's working there, they're all dressed up like Nazis of World War II. Um, and I love the scene where Colonel Kane and Captain Cutshaw talk about the existence of God, and how um, Cutshaw doesn't believe there's any good in the world, but Kane absolutely does, and sets out to prove to him that it does exist. Um, but to me, the absolute best scene in the film, or the best part of the film, is when they go to the bar room. Um, to me, just off the top of my head, I may be wrong. I can't come up with another one, but this may be the best barroom scene, like involving a fight, um, things going bad in a barroom, maybe in cinematic history. It is that good. There is tension and suspense in there, and it's great because the main villain of the biker gang, his name is Stanley, played by Steve Sandor. Great villain, layered. You don't know where he's going. You don't know how far are these bikers going to go? Are they going to let up now? Just beat him to a pulp, throw him outside, which usually happens. No, that like you don't know how far they're going to go. What's going to happen next? Richard Lynch is also there as well, and he was in a lot of horror films. Just off the top of my head, I know he was in Puppet Master 3. He was even in Alligator 2, which I reviewed as well. Um, Great actor, very much in a lot of horror films as well. But he's playing a villain, and he's truly slimy as well. Um, but the bikers, they throw Captain Cutshaw around, they pour beer all over him, they throw him up in the air after they do a countdown like he's going into outer space, everything like that. And then Colonel Kane shows up to get him out of there and go back to the insane asylum. But they then proceed to do the same thing with Colonel Kane, throw him around in a circle, pour beer on him. Uh, they there's even a weird little scene where uh, Stanley does a splits and then like pours a beer on the floor and makes Colonel Kane lick it up off the floor. Truly horrible what these guys are doing to these two men. Um, and then they are in the act of raping Captain Cutshaw when Colonel Kane loses it. And then he proceeds to kill everyone in the bar um, in a quick flash. Um, and then in the end scene when Colonel Kane, uh, his death, um, it then shows to Cutshaw that there is in fact goodness within the human. And when Cutshaw brings him down the stairs, they're back in the castle. He brings him downstairs to show everyone in the castle. They've all made a connection with Kane at this point. It's a very Christ-like image of him bringing him down the stairs. And definitely, as I may have said, religion is totally flowing in this film. Definitely very much more in the second part of the film, but it's definitely there, like Blatty's other Exorcist and Exorcist 3 as well. Um, and then, as I forgot to mention as well, Stacy Keach's performance I think is amazing. Um, it does come off as almost wooden or robotic or very like almost emotionless, really. But then when he breaks out as Vincent Kane, when he breaks through that shell and you see that, the look on his face, the anger he's able to bring out on the screen, I think is amazing and a big wow when he does that. So, an amazing performance as well there done by Keach as well, who was actually a last minute replacement as well to get that role. So there you have it. That's William Peter Blatty's The Ninth Configuration. Great flick. As I said, this one isn't for everyone. It may be polarizing. I think some people may hate it and other people may love it. It took me a couple of viewings and then I was like, whoa, okay, all right, I get it. Um, because it's just so unorthodox. It doesn't do what you think it should do at times. But anyways, that was a lot of fun. I can't wait to watch my next film and bring that to you. But anyways, until then, Hawkeye out.